Welcome to a new episode of The Startup Show. Today I'm here at Wenger Vieli Partners with a partner of the firm, Pascal Honold. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cedric.
Welcome to a new episode of The Startup Show. Today we are here at the offices of Wenger Vieli Partners, lawyers. First time we have a lawyer on the show. I'm really excited because I'm hoping to get really nice insights into startups and what they should be looking for. But before we get into this, we actually met at the Start Summit, a student-organized startup event. But let's get first into you. Tell us a little bit about your person.
Yeah, thank you, Cedric. My name is Pascal Honold. I'm a lawyer, Zurich-based lawyer of the law firm Wenger Vieli. I got my license as a lawyer in Zurich, the Zurich bar and Swiss bar, around 12 years ago. Since then, I was working in the transaction business, meaning M&A, mergers and acquisition transaction. I'm corporate lawyer from my feet to my head. I never did something else, so I'm really into it.
Right.
I went to the US to study there, and then I became a lawyer at the New York State Bar as well. I had a fantastic time in the US, in New York. It was just too fantastic to come back, to be honest. But all of a sudden in 2008, there was not so much to do as a lawyer in the New York City. So I was glad to return back to Zurich. I'm glad to be here, and I really think Zurich is in Europe one of the startup centers, place to be. So we as a venture lawyer, we are at the right place here right now.
Good position. Before we get into how you support startups, maybe you can give like one or two tips. Let's say I have a lot of students watching this video, so if someone says like, I want to do exactly what you're doing, what would you recommend them to do?
Certainly be better than me while attending the classes in university, so be attentive there. But theory is one thing, especially when I talk with my experience. Go to the practice. Go out. Go to the people. Talk to people. A good lawyer is certainly someone who knows the law, certainly knows how the law works and how you have tricks and so on, how to make it better for your client. But at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's a people business. You have to know and understand what your client needs to have. And so if you are a talkative, an open person, an open personality, then you certainly be a good lawyer, but you have to be an understandable person as well. So it's not all about academics, it's also a personality, and that's what I think it's most important at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's get into your expertise working together with startups. So you have a lot of your clients are startups. Startups is a very, very special type of client, I guess, in the corporate world.
It is.
So maybe you can give us a little bit of background, what that means from the lawyer's perspective, working with a startup.
I love to work with startups because startups, they are fresh, they're innovative, and this is the economy of tomorrow. And I like to be there at the very pulse of our economy in Switzerland, Europe, worldwide. So startup people are always interesting. They have, every case is different and needs a specific proper solution for this specific case. So as a startup lawyer, we certainly try to get things together. Mm-hmm. Meaning we try to help the startup entrepreneur to get into a proper line in a successful way to his hopefully soon exit or IPO. And as we always say, startup begins at the very first day of your venture and not when you incorporate your company or even later when you got in the exit. No, it starts the very first day when you are born, and you take everything with you in your history. So we think it's quite important to accompany the startup people from the very beginning. We see us as counselor, as sounding board. How can we do? How did other people do? So actually we see as a starting supporting engine actually at the end of the day. At the one hand, and the other hand, we are also a networking tool which can be used. So our clients are the startup entrepreneurs, but on the other hand, we have a lot of VC angels, we have investors, private equity clients. So we try to make things happen, as I already mentioned before. So when people talk to each other, things happen. So we try to bring the right people together as well. So we think we can be here a catalyst for the startup community. We can bring your venture into a professionalized way to success. That's actually our main goal when working with startup companies.
So as we said before, like it's a very special type startups. I would say like one of the main reasons is probably because there's always a lack of capital.
It's
always tough. So let's say some of my audience are aspiring entrepreneurs. They're probably started already, as you said, not to do, but let's say they started already. What is, let's say, number one, the right moment? As you said, probably early on, but like, is there also a later stage? And what can they expect in terms of payment? So let's say, like, if they have to come up with a huge amount of capital just to be able to let into this office here?
No, definitely not. First point here is we want to take down this hurdle to step into a law firm. No, a specialized law firm as we are today, we certainly know what startup companies and entrepreneurs are able to do. We know what they really need, and that's why we can provide a good package for them, which at the end of the day makes a good value for the startup entrepreneur. This is the first point. Second point is when you start with your startup, there are a lot of information around on the web. Some are true, some are false. There's always good to have a sort of a sounding board, an experienced advisor, be it a lawyer, as we are, be it a person of your trust with some experience. You could do the same as well when you start, but sooner or later you will need some legal support to get your venture into a legal entity. I would say the latest point in stage where you should contact your lawyer, an experienced startup lawyer who knows what really is the need of startup entrepreneur, and then it's a good time to start. And as I said, we have good packages where we can offer. There are always methods to pay your lawyer, be it either over time or be it when your first financing round is at your doorstep. Then in my experience, most of the time the investor is willing to pay your lawyer. So there are always ways to find a way to your legal advice.
So I'm sure you met a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups over the course of your career. I'm sure you had funny stories, interesting stories, sad stories, encouraging stories. Maybe you want to share, like, I don't know, one or two stories and the lessons you've learned from it.
As you said, there are always funny stories around. Some are really funny, some are just funny stories when you just have.
And it's past.
Past, yes.
We can talk about it.
There are failed stories as well, but I wouldn't name it failed stories because when you struggle, you should learn and you should make it better for the next time. So it's never lost of time or loss of experience. What is actually funny about our job in general is that we have freaky people sometimes with fancy ideas, which then have somehow to match with really organized investors with clear ideas. We have to put this in clear contract with a lot of provisions, and otherwise we don't have a deal. And on the other hand, you have chaotic clients. They just want to get the money and are ready to sign everything. So in between there, I see my job, and there are the funny stories where some, let's say, world clashes and just different interests are around. One story at the top of my head is once we had a very successful startup company who provided software for banks, private banks as well as global banks and transaction banks, and they were at the doorstep of the exit, really into a good auction process, meaning they were inviting a lot of potential buyers. They were already supported by one Swiss bank. They were actually the main investor, but nevertheless they wanted to make a full exit, and we made a full-scale auction with documents in English and so on and so on. And at the end of the day, the auction went through, was very successful, and the winning bidder was the cantonal bank of the next state. So at the end of the day, we sat together at at the big table where all the bank directors were there, the seller and the buyer and the inventor and the startup entrepreneur. And all of a sudden, one of the bank directors said, why the hell is everything in English here? I talked to my colleague from the Cantonal Bank next state in Germany, in Swiss German. Why the hell we have to do everything in English? And everyone was, okay. You're actually right. That's just the startup world.
The startup is all in English.
It's international, it's global, it's English.
Sure.
No way about that. So even, let's say, conservative bankers have to learn about that.
Tell me about, maybe you have more something like in terms of, I would say like there are probably a lot of issues, founding team members or financial litigations, that it's not so clear who is against who and who paid what. Do you have maybe some tips you can give on like how to avoid future conflict when you are starting off as a founding team?
Yeah, I mean, what you mentioned here is very, very important, and it's actually in almost all startups where not only one person is involved, and this is the vast majority. There is a group of founders. You have to be very clear from the beginning who brought in what to the startup, to the venture, who was responsible for what, who got paid for that, who wasn't. So you have a very clear picture who is responsible and liable for, but on the other hand, who will get payment out of it. So meaning who will then in the exit profit from that. You have the inventor, and then you have the founding team, the supporter, the finance, the family, friends and fools supporting them. Everyone feels at the beginning we are one team and we bring a lot of effort and work into flying this venture. But when it comes to the exit, or when it comes to then it struggles. And then all of a sudden the question is, who was the inventor? And the inventor belongs to whom? Is it in the venture, or is it still the private person owning this? And then the conflict begins. So we see a lot of disputes around that. Who is the owner of the intellectual property, the real, let's say, the beef at the bone of the startup company? And that's very, let's say, nasty talks and legal disputes there. And some of the startups just broke
just because of this.
Because of this, yes.
Okay, good. So thank you very much for giving this insights. We have a checklist that they have online. We'll link it up in the caption, so you can like read all of the tips that like you can get like firsthand from Pascal, partner of this law firm. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for giving us your insights. I really appreciate it for taking your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much for your attention and for watching this episode. And have a great day, and see you soon with a new episode. Have a great day.